We are live. Everybody ready?
Ready.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, April 27th, 2023 meeting of the school committee. I would ask for those who are here in attendance if you'd like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the first item on our agenda this evening is the open public hearing regarding school choice. As people know, this is a legally required thing that we do annually. And so I would seek a motion to open the public hearing on school choice for the 2023 to 2024 school year.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Leah. Is there a second? Second by Holly. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. And the public hearing is open as of 7:01. Anybody that would like to speak on the school choice for next year? We will keep the public hearing open until the posted close of it at 7:15. Somebody can kind of nudge me if I lose track, but if we don't have anybody here to speak, we can move ahead with it open and go into some of our other agenda items in the meantime.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would you maybe want to explain what the school choice
yes.
item is, just so people know?
Absolutely. So school choice is some districts choose to allow students from other districts to come in, and the districts that are sending would pay tuition to the districts that are coming in. So if we were to entertain school choice as an option, students that were coming into our district would be, the sending districts would pay us tuition for them. Historically, as long as I can remember, we have not allowed school choice, as I think probably many people can kind of guess our issue. It really is space. But we do every year, we revisit it as legally required.
Thank you.
Okay. So while we're kind of keeping that as an open tab on our meeting here, if there is any public comment on any other items. Okay, then let's move into recognitions. Do people have recognitions?
I know he's not here, but I just want to recognize Robert, who has been an amazing school committee member for this entire year. And I hope his graduation goes well. And good luck to him going forward.
I definitely echo all of that.
He's like the best of what we have here, I think, right? Like he's kind and funny and always nice to the old people at the table. Like he's just a nice guy. I'm happy that we had the experience with him.
I love that having a representative at the table brings a little more student voice and a little bit more firsthand experience for us and what's going on in our high school. This is, I think, just the second year, correct, that we've done this, and we have been so fortunate to have amazing representatives both years. It always feels like, this year coming to a close, it feels like, we can't possibly have somebody that we love as much, and then I'm sure next year somebody equally solid will come along.
I think the other really big positive that I noticed was, my kids are now graduated. So having a touch point in the school meant that when I went to the arts fair or whatever, he would notice me and pull me into doing things. And so I felt a lot more in touch even in those situations. So that was really, really nice too. He's a very good salesman, by the way. He got me to do tattoos and stuff for his class.
That's great.
I know, I didn't know that was a thing, but that's cool.
That's great. Man of many talents. Any other recognitions? Then that can bring us into the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. This is the superintendent's report for April 27th, 2023. Tonight, I will regale you with tales of. So I have an announcement about softball donations and upgrades to the Lauren Anderson Field. We have some Metro West Adolescent Health Survey data to share. The Elmwood replacement projects, we have a little celebration there. Some pictures from touring schools in Brookline and Millis and Easton, and we have some of those pictures will help us with our preferred schematic design work, and then an update on enrollment data. So girls softball, Earlier this week on Monday, Kathy Kilduff called and said, would I be available to come? And they were making another donation in memory of Lauren Anderson. So you can take a look at the pictures. The one on the left has a picture of Kathy Kilduff and Ricky Anderson with the entire girls varsity softball team. And what they've been able to do in terms of raising money is they've got all the girls got the windbreakers that you see there, and then they purchased for them a pitching machine. And I can tell you, if you take a look at the far right picture, the girls were just applauding and excited because the pitching machine that they have now is well, it's not working, we'll say that. But the other thing is, it doesn't do change-up pitches, it doesn't do things like that. So they're really excited to have this. And then they've also purchased a shed to house that pitching machine so that, it's not going to be damaged by weather. So many thanks to Kathy and Ricky. And if you take a look at the picture in the front, you can see that all the girls are held in their arms out, and every sleeve has a little LA for Lauren Anderson on there. So, and we lost her, I think, 28 years ago. So it's really nice that her memory can still live on. And these donations are very often in-kind donations. So we've done a lot of work with them. At some point, I'm sure that you will see on an agenda approval to accept all of those gifts. All right, so the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey. What you're seeing here, just some screenshots of what they have sent to us. And, obviously there's much richer and more complex data, but I do like how they've set this up for us. So in the areas or categories of connectedness and support, in Hopkinton, 92% of middle school youth and 93% of high school youth have a supportive adult in their lives. So when you look at this, all of our middle school data will be in green, all of our high school data will be in purple. 58% of middle school youth and 72% of high school youth say that they have an adult support at school, and 89% of middle school youth and 90% of high school youth say that they have an adult support outside of school. We should probably just address that 58%, because I was talking to Mr. Lefebvre today about that, because all of those other numbers, kind of feel like they're in the same area, but 58 is lower than we would have expected that. One of the things that he has said is that he feels like if kids at the middle school didn't feel like they had an adult that they could connect with, there'd be a very different vibe. And we also are going to go back and look to see how the question is worded, because we're wondering if a middle school student might have misinterpreted the question. So if you ask about an adult support, might a student have thought, do I have a paraprofessional that I go to, or do I have a tutor or something like that? So we'll look into that. But regardless, all of these numbers are numbers that we will look into to make sure that our kids are feeling connected to adults in our school and connected to one another.
Dr. Kavanaugh, is it 6th, 7th, and 8th all that answer the survey, or just the older kids?
Oh, I think it is 6, 7, and 8.
Because I feel like 6th grade is the first time they don't have one teacher. We're making that break to having a team, so it might. Just the culture change may also be impacting, depending on when do they take this?
Oh, they just took it a little while ago, didn't they? Did they take it like late fall?
I believe so.
I think it's late fall.
Okay.
All right, so adult support among youth with learning or physical disabilities. 90% of middle school youth with disabilities report having a supportive adult in their lives versus 91% of youth who do not have a disability. And at the high school, the numbers were 92% of high school youth with disabilities report having a supportive adult in their lives. And that the other number is 93% of youth without disabilities. So those numbers are really nicely tight. And then on the right-hand side, in terms of school connectedness is lower among youth who identify as LGBTQ. For example, 48% of middle school LGBTQ youth report feeling close to people at school versus 70% of non-LGBTQ youth feeling that they are close to people at school. And then at the high school, the percentage was 46 for LGBTQ youth reporting that they are feeling close to someone at school or people at school. And the non-LGBTQ students reported that they felt close to someone at school at a rate of 69%.
Is this going to lead to kind of an investigation and possibly supports being put in place?
That is what we do when we get this data. Okay. So we have this data, and we always talk about the HSA, but we also get vocal data from DESE. So it's nice to have those 3 different sources so that we can really take a look at this. But yes, we do have, an eye on our LGBTQ kids.
Do we have any comparative data on that, either from our district in other years or how we're faring relative to other districts? Not asking for right on the spot, but
But yes, I'm sure that data exists.
that's really concerning to me. Is it connectedness to other youth or connectedness to anybody in general that they're asking about?
I will double check on that for you. I believe it's anyone in school when it says people at school. It could be an adult, it could be another kid.
I feel like it, from where I said, it's not super surprising given the current socio-political climate around LGBTQ adults and youth, right? So it might feel like that constant conversation about consideration and worthiness kind of affects their own self-esteem and self-worth, right? So I wonder also, do we know what percentage of our student body is reflected in this data? And all the data, like, is it?
Unless a parent would say that they did not want their child to take the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, they're all in there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I agree with Nancy. I'd love to understand how we're going to use this data to help support our LGBTQ kiddos and our middle school kiddos and understand and make sure. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so this slide shows us students' responses around social media use. So if you take a look at the middle school, you can see that if we're talking about students who are spending 3 or more hours a day on social media, 21% of females said that they spend 3 or more, and only 13% of males. At the middle school, at the high school, it's 25% of females and 20% of males. So that's kind of interesting. I think that that the females are reporting that they are on social media longer during the day than the males are.
So here's one where I'm curious, having had 2 boys, because like my kids spent hours on Discord, which isn't technically considered social media, but I have it on my phone and my son sends me messages through Discord, right? And that's where they play all their video games and stuff. So I'm curious about how they define social media, right? And whether these numbers would balance out if things like Discord and stuff like that was considered a social media avenue.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know if it is or not. We would have to do a little research to find that out. And maybe the interesting thing is, I'd have to go back and look at the question to see how they define social media for the test taker,
right,
or
exactly.
the survey taker.
And even use of social media, is it like constant? I mean, this to me is terrifying. Like 3 hours, you have 6 hours of school, you have to eat, you have to sleep, homework. Like,
What else
do you do nothing else? But I mean, it's hard to come up with 3 hours. I know my kids never had like 3 spare hours, Monday through Friday anyway, So I don't know, I'm curious, is it like constant use or it's kind of on while I'm doing, I'm kind of getting some chats or, texts or whatever people get like while they're doing.
Or is it a question of per week and then they average it out and they say 3 hours per day?
Right. And they binge on the
But
weekend.
they binge on the
Yeah,
weekend.
binge on the
There's
weekend.
also like direct correlation between social media use and depression and anxiety, like increases in students. So it's like one of
Yeah.
those things where those higher the higher ends, I'd worry about their mental health.
And literacy and I mean everything. Yeah, it's tough. Yikes.
Yes, and so that's a great segue, because if you take a look at lower down on that, at the middle school, kids are 3.1 times more likely to report depressive symptoms if they are on social media for 3 or more hours a day, and they're 2.9 times more likely to seriously consider suicide. So that's middle school, and then at the high school, 1.7 times more likely to report depressive symptoms, and 1.5 times more likely to seriously consider suicide if they also report that they are on social media for more than 3 hours a day. On the right-hand side, you can see that there are some positives and negatives. So if you look at the green side, the lighter green represent the boys, and the darker green represents the girls. On the high school side, the lighter purple represents the boys, and the darker purples represents the girls. So if you are speaking up or taking action on social media about issues that are important to me, the boys at the middle school, at the rate of 17%, said that they would. Girls, 26%. At the high school, boys, 18%. Girls, 37%. Getting support on social media when going through a tough or challenging time. The boys at the middle school said 26% of them said that they would do that. 32% of the girls said so. At the high school, 21% of the boys, and at the high school, 30% of the girls. Below that line, feeling badly about myself, excluded or left out when seeing what others post on social media. At the middle school, 13% of boys said that they would feel badly about themselves. Girls at a rate of 26%. At the high school, 16% of boys and 39% of girls said that they would be feeling badly about themselves, excluded or left out when they see what other people post. And then feeling pressured to post things that will get a lot of comments or likes. At the middle school, 15% of boys feel pressured to do that, and 17% of girls feel pressured to do that. At the high school, 11% of boys and 27% of girls. So very interesting data. And I think this is important data too for us to be sharing with parents.
So I don't want to interrupt, but the time is up.
Oh, yes. So interrupt for one moment.
Okay.
I would seek a motion to close the public hearing on school choice.
So moved.
Motion by Leah. Is there a second? Second by Holly. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. And the public hearing for school choice is closed at 7:16. We'll return to your report before we get into the discussion on that.
Okay. All right, so on Wednesday, yesterday, Mrs. Carver and I and representatives from Vertex and Perkins Eastman were invited to attend a board meeting with the MSBA, and at that time the board did vote to move us from feasibility to preferred schematic design. So that is a huge milestone and super exciting for all of us.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for making us
That is
there.
An
amazing.
awful lot of work on the part of an awful lot of people. Yes. So if you watch some of those elementary school building committee meetings, you see that there are probably 20 people sitting around this table. All of those people had some role in getting us to where we are. So, and obviously I'd like to say thank you to Mrs. Rothermick and Mr. Person, the work that you have been doing on those building projects. A lot. Yes. So we were also able to do some school visits, as I had said earlier. And I think when you do those school visits, you learn some interesting things. So we had heard from teachers what's going to happen if you have 400 students who are in a cafeteria at one time. And when we went to these two schools, the one on the left is in Easton and the one on the right is in Brookline, and you can see how those cafeteria ceilings are designed. They are specifically designed to absorb sound. The building principal in the school on the right said that she can stand at any point in that cafeteria and without being microphoned, talk to the kids, and the way the sound moves in that room, they can actually hear her from any place. When the noise goes down and she talks, her voice will carry there. So the whole sound piece was pretty cool in those two places. And the second thing that I thought I would show you from those visits are outdoor learning spaces. So you really can't see it all that well in the picture on the left, but what happens with that roof structure there is that rain will actually gather and then it goes down a chain and it forms on a chain. It's a really cool way to pull rain off the roof, but it will also form like a greater and greater thickness of ice. And then when it comes out, you can see that there's kind of a pathway there. So rain will actually pool in that on super rainy days. But there's so many other things in there. Way in the back, you can't see this, but there's also like sort of a small theater stage in the outdoors, lots of sort of outdoor planting that kids can learn from. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that there's an outdoor roof deck. And if you walked further down, there's an entirely planted outdoor roof deck. And kids get to see which species will, kind of creep and take over others, so that some survive and some do not. So there's some really cool outdoor learning spaces that we saw as well. So just things to be excited about, I think. One more time, we'll talk about enrollment. If we wanted to do a comparison to where we were at a similar time last year, Georgette pulled up the numbers for June 1st of 2022, and at that point in time we had 4,069 kids in the district, and today we have 4,216. Last time we did this, I think we had 4,209, so there's been an increase of 7 kids in just the last few weeks. The other thing that will be of interest to you, I think, is the integrated preschool. There are 115 students who are approved there. We're pending 3 approvals, and so it probably will not be long before we have 118 kids in the integrated preschool. And I know I say it all the time, but when we opened Marathon, we had 53 students in that program.
But even like just thinking about this year, the amount it's grown from the beginning of this year to now has been significant.
We started the year under 100 students.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to ask about, the number for June 1st, that would be after the seniors graduate though, right? And right now the number we're looking at still contains the seniors? Is that correct?
That number from last year, the 6/1/2022, did have seniors in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to verify.
It was a Sims data
Okay,
number.
thank you. That's all that.
All right, and that's all I have for you.
Questions?
Are we nervous about where the preschoolers are gonna go? Like, I feel nervous.
Well,
Because those kiddos are like, they need the space because they're 3. I don't know, I just feel nervous.
I have been in touch. The town is working with someone already to think about possible uses for Elmwood School, and I know that they've been talking on the town side about it.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of looped me in recently, and we've had conversations about what would the needs be if you were to, renovate the Elmwood School, at least a portion of it, for integrated preschool. And we could look at, the square footage costs of that as well. And, in some ways, if you take the kids out of Marathon and move them into Elmwood, you're freeing up all of that space, and we know that the population of Marathon is only going to grow.
Yeah.
Or the alternative is to figure out where you head on to Marathon.
If we renovate Elmwood for the preschool and don't go through the MSBA, we still have to retrofit, like bring everything up to code once you open up the school, right? So the expense will be
Big.
not negligible.
Correct.
It depends.
It would be big.
Yeah, very big, yeah.
It depends on the amount of renovation, right? So it's like once you hit a certain point, then you have to meet all the ADA requirements and all of that. But below that point, you can still do some fixing up without
Is it
hitting against
square-
those regulations. But I don't know what that number is or how it would affect something like the integrated preschool.
Would it be based on square footage, or is it?
It was explained to us at
Oh,
an
they don't-
ESBC2 meeting too. I don't know. Do you know the details? I can't remember the
Percentage of the
details.
value of the building.
Right.
Oh, it's-
Yeah.
yeah,
Something
it's
like that.
more.
Yeah.
That's
But
everything.
the other piece too is the town is looking at it for what they need as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overflow, so things that we would need to do, it may become an entire town project. So
Okay.
Oh, like a mixed use space.
I think Park and Rec
Okay.
is in need of space.
Yeah.
I believe they would want to make sure to maintain that gym.
Yeah, yeah.
The demands that of their growing, programs.
Okay.
I think that would be really awesome because
Yeah.
then we're not creating the new preschool that we were talking about possibly needing. So saving costs for the taxpayer.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of things that could be used, I'm sure, for the town on top of what school needs might be.
Right.
Right. Anything else? Okay. Those enrollment comparisons are interesting to look back. It feels like we've been creeping so steadily. I forget that we were really not that far over 4,000 a year ago.
100 a year, it seems like, right?
And then
Yeah, almost 2.
Just a quick question again, because you always bring this up, but I want to compare in my head. What is our budget for next year based on? What number of students? It was,
Oh, so you have,
it was the projected,
4169 or
right?
Yeah, I
something.
think you're right.
you think it's 4169?
4160 something.
Yeah, that
So
sounds
we're already
correct.
40 children over
We
before
are,
even
right, that's
the
right.
beginning of next year and the budget.
Right.
I
Last time
feel
think it
like
was about 42 kids over, I think.
I feel like the number 4264 is where we expected to be at the end of 25.
Yeah.
So we could potentially, at this rate, be at the opening of the 23-24 school year where we were supposed to be at the end of 25.
So the budget for next year is 4186.
Oh, it was off. I said
Everybody was
4160. Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say, maybe
We're all
you're just
good
inverting the
guesses.
last
There
two
you go.
digits.
All right.
Yeah, but it's May, we haven't even voted it, and we're already over the number that we were projecting. Just, for people to be aware and thinking about it.
You do have a large senior class this year, so that will help the numbers a little bit as they exit and depending on what kindergarten does. So just something to keep in mind.
All right.
Kindergarten's just getting bigger.
If there are no other questions on the superintendent's report, I want to circle back to the school choice discussion. We did close the public hearing on school choice, but we need a recommendation from the superintendent and then to take some action on it.
Sure. So, as you said earlier, school choice does fall under Mass General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B. And each year, annually, if you don't want to participate in school choice, you do have to have a public hearing, which we just did, and then take a vote. Once again, it would be my recommendation not to participate. As we all know, we have put multiple additions on all 5 of our buildings at this point, maybe not the middle school. And knock on wood. And I think just space constraints alone would speak to not deciding to invite children from other districts into Hopkinton.
My recollection also is that once we've invited them in, we are obligated to keep them
Yes,
until they
that's
graduate.
correct.
So that could, even if we thought we had a little bit of space for next year, it would continue to.
Yes.
And siblings as well? Is there a sibling?
Yes, there's
I think
a
there
sibling
is,
rule
right?
too, yes. Yep.
So I'm against it because of the number of people, but I want to say that philosophically, I am for it completely, right? So I do believe in the idea of giving opportunity for children in school districts that may not be doing as well as ours to come to our school district to be able to get the education that you would get here. So
Yes.
if it wasn't for the amount of kids and the fact that we're growing so fast, I would probably be very much for it.
I would agree with that philosophically, again, with the caveat that with the spacious issues that we have had for now a number of years, it would be impossible to think about at this point. But it also, as a tuition in kind of a thing, would be able to be sustained, might improve different types of diversity from where people are from and whatnot, but not now.
Not now.
Right. Is there somebody who would like to make a motion related to school choice?
Sure. I request to not participate in school choice for the 2023-2024 school year.
Okay, so a motion by Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Leah. All those in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? And it is unanimous that we will not participate in school choice for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Okay. That brings us then down into the school committee chair report. And I just want to say that payroll warrant S2321 has been approved. Warrants 23-054, 23-055, 23-056, and 23-057 have all been approved. We have not had any budget advisory meetings the past couple of weeks just because of where the budget is, so I have nothing to update on that. Do people have any liaison reports?
No. No.
I have one. We had our meeting at the monthly meeting that we had with CPAC. I thought it was very productive. It was good to have people together. Also, CPAC is going to be inviting us to, in part because of the meeting that we had talked about having in May as a larger group. We're going to do that in June, and they're going to invite us all for also their end of year celebration. So that will be on June 6th.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That then brings us down into, if there are no other liaison reports, into our new business. The first item is the Lou and Kathy White Scholarship.
Sure.
Dr. Kavanaugh.
So each year, we ask you to approve these scholarships. What happens is that some of these are paid through the town treasurer. So the ones that are, we have to ask you to just approve them. So the first one is the Lou and Kathy White Scholarship, and I'm simply asking you to authorize payment from the town treasurer.
So I move to authorize payment of the Lou and Kathy White Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $500.
Okay, so motion by Leah. Is there a second?
Second.
By Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and that carries. So that it just also, these scholarships are such a great thing for our graduating seniors, and I know on senior recognition night, to which we'll all be invited, it's amazing how many scholarships and how much money community organizations and as well as some town organizations make available for our kids going on to whatever their post-secondary plans are.
I was so happy to see our agenda for tonight with all of these.
It is nice. It's
Nice to have some happy things.
nice little
Yeah.
new business section.
It is.
Yeah. And it's also nice that when we are at graduation to hear all of the scholarships that go out to these kids in varying amounts, but just to have them leaving with something to help get them started when they go to school is amazing. So
Totally agree. All right, so that brings us down into the next one, which is the Annette Joyce Flo Memorial Scholarship.
Okay, so same thing. I'm asking that the school committee authorize payment from the town treasurer for that scholarship in the amount of $500.
Somebody would like to make that motion to approve?
you want to go consistent?
Sure,
You go.
sure. Move to authorize payment of the Annette Joyce Floor Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $500.
Okay. Motion by Leah, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jen, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and that sounded unanimous, so that is also approved with gratitude for our seniors. And then the final scholarship we have tonight is the STEM Scholarship.
Okay, and I think this is a relatively new one. And again, just asking you to authorize payment from the town treasurer for the STEM scholarship in the amount of $5,000.
Okay.
It's a nice size.
Do you know the funding source?
So that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, the
It's like a
organization.
mysterious donor
I
that
know.
like science.
Is the town just giving STEM money away? What's happening? I know. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong, but
It's a sizable scholarship.
Yes, it is.
$5,000. We don't know anything.
I don't know if this is the new one where there was a donor who wanted to create the scholarship in the name of 3 of her science teachers while she had been in Hopkinton High School.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Something makes me think that's true, but I'll have to do a little research for you.
At senior recognition night, there's typically a great deal of information available on all of them, which is
I'm gonna imagine it's like a cool, mysterious scientist somewhere.
go with that. Yeah, totally go
I
with
like that.
Okay, move to authorize payment of the STEM Scholarship in the amount of $5,000.
Motion by Leah, is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Jen, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, also unanimous, and so carries. And we are a little bit ahead of schedule. I think it would be wise to hold off on the CPAC policy because we have a couple other people coming. Is that accurate? Awesome. Okay, so I want to skip ahead to the end of cycle progress report, Dr. Kavanaugh, and then we'll go back to the CPAC when we have more CPAC here.
I think I may have closed that report inadvertently.
Okay, so I will just share with people a couple of other things while you're pulling that up then. So I emailed everybody a copy of the blank evaluation. In terms of process, what we'll do is Dr. Kavanaugh will talk about some of her evidence here tonight. And then individually, we'll all go home between now and next week and work on our individual feedback, and that becomes part of the public record as well. But then next week when we meet, what we'll do is we'll kind of put them all together, agree on kind of joint ratings and comments that we want to share for the final, which is the official. Even though our individual ones are public records, the official superintendent year-end report evaluation is what the 5 of us create together. So,
Do we have anything that provides clarity as to like what the different ratings mean and how, what. So once again, the superintendent evaluations are very, I don't know what the word is, very like specific, very touchy, right? Like,
Yes.
Whereas at work, if I got a needs improvement in one area, it wouldn't be a very big deal. In a superintendent evaluation, that can be a very serious issue, right? And so,
And it's also a public way of indicating, I think, displeasure.
right. So it would be nice to like come to the public with kind of the idea of what does it mean to rate a superintendent along these levels and that kind of process piece. Because I know they trained us on it.
I think it would be worthwhile putting some of that in our packet for next week for people to be able to look at home, both the form that we're using and then I can send this out to you as well. From DESE, there's a little bit more on kind of looking at what everything that we're saying means.
All the indicators and stuff. DESE outlines it very clearly. Yeah.
Exactly, and what it means to be able to say that it was met. There was some progress, significant progress exceeded
Right.
versus the
And I think
proficient.
math has a pretty nice explanation.
Yeah.
They do, and the expectation is sort of more the proficient. If you're going above to exemplary, or if you're going below to needs improvement, you have to be able to explain what it is that we're saying in that. But
Yeah.
I feel like I might not be portraying this accurately, but I feel like with the rubric indicators, for a superintendent, it goes from, this sort of thing is exhibited to influences others to carry that, whatever it is, forward as well. So the superintendent tends to get evaluated on, like, not just what the superintendent does actually, but what the district does under the leadership of the superintendent. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, for next time, the packet, I think it just helps because, people all have different experiences with what their reviews are like if they work in a particular, corporation or something. And so understanding the edges of what the superintendent review looks like, I think will help the public to think harder about what we're presenting.
it's about as prescribed a process as I can imagine for doing a review.
Yep.
But,
Is this our only topic for next week? Is it just a workshop?
unless any little pieces pop up that are kind of emergency in between meetings, this is the only, we do have an executive session as well. But this is the only public piece that we're doing next week. It is, like you said, a workshop style. We'll compare notes on what we've done and then kind of try to put it all together.
Right.
So, and then the following week, and this is why the timeline feels maybe a little bit tight, because I know some people are moving off the committee, but it's important to have the people that have worked with Dr. Kavanaugh all year be the ones who evaluate her. So that's why we're doing 3 weeks in a row with this.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you. So you know that you just saw a lot of this back in February, so there hasn't been a great deal of time in between the mid-cycle review and this review. So what I have in this slide deck are the 5 goals, and I have added a couple of things. So I've shared this with you this afternoon, when you're looking through all of this data, you can actually click here, and there's this kind of a goal worksheet for each one of these. And what happens with those is that when I'm working with directors or working with Georgette or working with Jeff or Susan, I have that worksheet, and I can just keep adding to it from September all the way through to the following May. So you'll remember that the first goal is the one that deals with math, and in K-6 math, student learning data will be used to drive instructional changes. Under the direction of the district's K-5 math director, as well as the middle school math CTL and the high school math SML, teachers, tutors, and principals will understand curricular, instructional, and assessment changes and implement and monitor these changes to ensure both growth and achievement for math students K-6. The high school SML will navigate the impacts of changes on high school math curricula. And so Carla Crisafulli has been part of a lot of these conversations, because if you start making changes to the middle school, you're also making changes to the high school. So we have done all of the STAR data collection for beginning of the year and the end of the year. We just met with Shelley recently, middle of the year, and they're going to begin doing the end of year STAR data collection very soon. Now, math is taught for 60 minutes per day in every single classroom, and when she came on board, that was not necessarily the case. So we're excited to have that kind of guaranteed and viable time for math in all of our elementary classrooms. The data collection tools are working, and I think I covered this with you back in February. So we talked about 100 students in first grade that were struggling to compose and decompose numbers up to 6. And so when we start to find that kind of data, we say, okay, now we have to go back in and remediate in some way, because that's really foundational to first grade math. And those are the kinds of things on which things are built. We also are doing Number Corner, and I think Jeff and I talked about that a little bit with you as well. So what kids are doing is it's really all math, like from the shoulders up. It's happening in their heads, and they're composing and decomposing numbers, and you can give them the number 125, and they have to think of lots of ways to make it, or they can take 25 and think of lots of ways to break it down into smaller pieces. So watching that is really giving them the kind of math fluency that we want them to have. We have ST Math going in, K to 3. And, we've talked all year about automaticity and fact fluency, and we even have a fact fluency screener now. The district is using Foundations to ensure better number formation, and right now we actually have 6 teachers who are taking a course on dyscalculia and dysgraphia. So, thank you, Lee, for bringing that up in the fall, because when I first presented these, because this isn't something that would have been kind of on our radar, but you got us thinking about it, and I think we're taking it in pretty great directions.
I was really happy to see this, so thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Our math coach meets with all of our tutors weekly, and they look at data, and some folks have said, well, what do the tutors do, and who are they? The tutors who are working in our schools they can be licensed teachers, they can be retired licensed teachers, they can be folks who moved here from another state and had licensure there and don't bother to get it here. They can just be folks who are really good at working with children, and when they are working with the kids, they are doing they're not teaching something new. They are kind of double dosing the kids with things that they may have missed along the way, or that they need a little more remediation on. And these are not necessarily students who are on IEPs or 504s, but they're kids that we recognize need a little something extra. So we are super lucky to be able to have these tutors working in our schools.
Do they also work with kids on IEPs?
Yes, they could, for sure, yes. And sometimes they are paid for out of grant money, and sometimes not. The issue of 6th grade math, this has been, for me, I think it's been really professionally rewarding to start doing this work. So when we first started looking at, and you'll be able to see some of the things that we unearthed along the way, but we started to have conversations about what happens when you're a kid who leaves grade 5, and even though we wouldn't say that Hopkins is leveled for math, it kind of is, because the differentiation that's taking place in those 5th grade classrooms, and because you have 2 classrooms who are paired, that they can break those kids up into 4 small groups or 3 small groups and be running all kinds of math groups. But the goal is always to say, this is the math standard, and that's what we want all of our kids going to, getting to that math standard. And this year we've implemented kind of a pilot at Hopkins, something called Beast Academy, and it's an online tool. And to kind of get a license for this, you are a kid who is not just high achieving in math, but you can be that kid who demonstrates all the time that you are thirsty for more. Math is your gig, you just love it. And we have kids who are super high achievers who are like, not for me, no thanks. And that's okay too. You can continue to be that high achiever. And I think one of the things I like about that a lot is that you don't have to be the star of all the shows. You can kind of determine who you are as a scholar. And if that's starting in grades 4 and 5, I can really wrap my head around that. So what happens to those kids when they get to the middle school? We've done a lot of work this year with placement. And so if you take your high flyer math students, and instead of just spreading them out willy-nilly through Power School, pressing a button and spreading them, if we can cohort them into groups of 4 or 5 in a classroom, now we at least know that there's this group of kids who need enrichment instruction in what is an unleveled math grade, grade 6. So when you have that, it's really nice because now the teacher can say, and this will be the enrichment project, and it's not limited to those kids, but it's certainly targeted to them. And if other kids want to try it, they can also try it. They've been doing that kind of work this year with the enrichment things and offering it up to anyone who's interested in it. And it's going to be very interesting to see if it kind of, when you raise the level of the water, do all boats rise, right? So that's going to be neat. We talked with the grade 6 CTL, and she felt like implementing leveled math for the 23-24 school year in grade 6 was too much too soon. And so we're going to take, and we've already had a couple of meetings, the next one comes in May. We're going to be doing walkthroughs at Hopkins, walkthroughs in grade 6 classrooms. And we'll take till about January of next year to really do a deep dive and come up with something that we think makes good sense for grade 6. And then when they start doing course selection and creating a schedule at the middle school next year, whatever decisions we make will be in a good place to implement. So.
I just want to talk to the math tutors really fast because 2-3 years ago, we had this whole discussion about tutors and about how children whose parents have access to more resources are able to get tutoring, and children who do not end up without the extra help. And so the fact that this was a conversation we had 3 years ago, and now we're seeing sort of in-house tutoring, that especially when we're talking about financial aid issues and what does cost of living look like in Hopkinton, I really appreciate it. I would love to see how this grows and how it's implemented across the board.
We have in the last few years hired many, many more tutors.
Yeah.
I just want to speak to the 6th grade math. I'm happy that this is being looked at. I'm happy that it is being looked at thoughtfully, and if more time is needed, I'm happy that more time is being taken. I think there are a lot of members of the community who are very eager to have this carefully evaluated and have a good solution for all the students put in place. So I was hoping for a resolution for next school year, but I would rather see it done right than done in a way that the teachers and the parents and the students just aren't clear about, or that it's not really right for kids. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I'm hoping that as we look at this, something that always sticks in my mind is enrichment more work or different work? Like, do you still have to do the base, and then just because you happen to be fairly proficient with whatever the topic is, are you just doing more, which is not so fun for most kids, or do you get to do something more appropriate? And that's a very different thing. And the other thing that always stands out for me is our use of technology and making sure that all students have access to teaching from teachers and not being parked in front of a computer, which you can get at home or anywhere else. And I think that's important for the struggling learners, the middle of the pack, and the advanced learners. And I think oftentimes we look at technology because it's cost effective, it's available, it's just not the same. And taking a love of something, which a lot of these kids have, and putting them in front of a computer can quickly dampen that love, versus having an adult who's also excited about that same topic, taking them forward, is a whole different thing. So, and the only other thing that I'll say, and then I'm done with this topic, I know we have so much more to get through, is that as we think about leveling, I think it's interesting. I do think Hopkins is essentially leveled in many ways. It has been for quite a while, and I think it's helpful for kids to see their peers and to start to find their, especially in middle school where being smart can be less cool among your peers. And so when you find your peers who are excited about a topic and you can identify them because you're in class together, so we're either cohorted or we're leveled, I think that's important. So thank you for looking into all of this. I'm excited to see the outcome.
Yeah. I'll just say one more thing about Beast Academy. So because we had these questions come from middle school educators, and they said, but are you going to then let a 6th grade student start doing 7th, 8th, and 9th grade math? And the answer to that is no. It is locked literally at 5th grade math. But what it does is through inquiry and puzzles and getting kids to kind of I mean, it's a lot of logic thinking. The kids are super passionate about it. The ones who are, like, I just love math. They can go with it. But that it's not in place of, it's not a curriculum, it's an enrichment. So they do still get instruction every day from their highly qualified teacher who's at the front of the room, I think instilling great math and passion for math in them. So.
I'm going to follow up really quick because you made me think of that. So one of the things that I think is cool about the idea of enrichment is you can introduce a different math, right? So for instance, I have a son who decided he hated math. He was really good at it. Decided he hated it. He would play Minecraft and he would start building stuff with redstone. Well, redstone is an XOR gate and you're creating circuits. So you're doing and OR gates and logic gates and complex patterns to create timing circuits, which is math. It's college level math, right? But he didn't think of it as math. So I really like that idea of a child maybe looking at the math here and going, I don't like math, but then seeing an enrichment activity that's different enough that they're like, oh, wait, that's math too, Like that's, I really like that.
And if there are kids who just don't get jazzed by it, they can give their license to somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, so it's pretty fluid. All right, second goal, in keeping with our K-5 focus on redesigning the district's writing curriculum, alongside a 6 to 10 commitment to the implementation of disciplinary literacy, I will have a second student achievement goal focused on writing curriculum instruction and assessment. If we believe that writing should be used in the service of reading and content area knowledge acquisition, this goal should raise achievement in writing, reading, and content area knowledge. Just kind of quickly going through all of these, you can see where those white spots are. You can click on those, but again, the goal worksheet is there. So I've been working with the assistant superintendent, the middle school director of ELA, the elementary ELA director, and we've really been looking at the writing curriculum for K-8. In middle school, there is a guaranteed and viable writing template for all students. It's been vetted with the high school English department at this point. In all of our grades, the ELA directors are working to ensure that discrete skills are also taught. So when we have SRSD, it typically helps kids mine for ideas and organize them. The discrete skills are where things like voice and word choice and unique sentencing all come in. So we are trying to kind of marry all of those things. I meet for once a week, really, with Mr. Bishop and Mr. LaFave, not together. But we do talk about disciplinary literacy in both of those schools. There were disciplinary literacy goals in the school improvement plans, so that's been exciting. Dr. Zaleski and I have gotten into joint meetings with Science Social Studies ELA, and believe it or not, but the math department actually wants us to come and talk about disciplinary literacy as it pertains to math. So we never thought it would be that exciting. You can see some of the PowerPoints that we've used with those departments. And we do have common writing assessments now at all grades. And so if you click on that one, you'll see a common writing assessment example for grade 1. But when you go into that goal worksheet, you can see some of the common instructional materials, what some of those SRSD templates look like, a sentencing lesson, for example, from grade 5, kind of how to build out your sentences. So you'll just kind of get a flavor, I think, for all of that. Goal number 3, to begin the work of aligning and merging the district's work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice, culturally responsive practices, social emotional learning. We have all of those things, and I think at the beginning of the year, we were doing a good job in those places, but we didn't have clearly defined roles. So when you click on this up here, you're going to see that there's a nice document that talks about what are Carla Burley's functions, what are Dr. Zaleski's functions, and what are Jen Suker's functions as you go. Our administrators have reviewed the SEL goals. We've done a lot of work, even since February with the CRI-OP. We've had Blackprint come in. We've taken a look at the CRI-OP again. We did some more walkthroughs. And even at our last admin council meeting, we had a really good day thinking about what kind of a district do we want to be. And we looked at some of the feedback that we got from Blackprint, which is sometimes nice to see and sometimes less comfortable to see. Carla Burley did at the high school today another iteration of the HSA, which is the Holistic Student Assessment, and it's really SS-based and it's normed. So it's not something that we have sort of homegrown, it's something that we purchase. The hopeful use of that data, when you get it, you get sort of stoplight data. So what you'll have, the triangle where you say, okay, look at those, that 11% of the kids up at the top in the right triangle, those are kids who probably need some really careful eyes on them. So if you take that along with Metro West Health Foundation, along with vocal data, you start to see which of our kids how our kids are doing, and then drill down and you can see which of our kids might need some support along the way, both socially and emotionally and in terms of the classroom. We've talked a lot about the BERF. We've talked a lot about anti-bullying. We've talked about the full PD day in November. Just a nice reminder that we have a culturally responsive trial program between Yale University and the Elmwood School. Yale only took a few schools into this, and so we have 6 teachers now. They film their classrooms. The Yale folks give us feedback, and this will continue out for a couple of years. We're still doing our K-5 PBIS, and we are in year 3 of that work. We have trained all of our middle school and high school admin and instructional leaders in restorative practices. So that work, I think everybody is pretty jazzed by that. And just over April vacation, Carla was able to train more people on a voluntary basis. If you wanted to come in, be paid the curriculum rate, you could get training in RJ. And I think after the 2 days, people were leaving saying, this is amazing. So we're getting great feedback about that. When 37H and 3/4, which we talked about in the fall, came through, we were wondering how it was that we were going to be able to educate our kids around issues of, bias and racism and those kinds of behaviors. And Jen Suger's been doing some really great work when the offense is something that deals with equity. So we continue to work with families regarding DEI, SJ, and SEL. We are working with the Director of Student Services and the Director of English Language Acquisition, Equity, and Access to ensure that the CPAC and the LPAC are growing. The LPAC is growing leaps and bounds. You know that we had some bumps in the road with the CPAC along the way, but we are working hard, I think, to restore those relationships. In fact, we met this morning. And I don't have to tell you about Black Print again. So going on to Goal 4, addressing enrollment growth and ultimately building use and expansion throughout the district. I think we've done, and this has been one of my goals for the last couple of years, and it has kind of sat flat for the previous 2 years, and then this year we have really put our feet on the accelerator, and we're going at about 60 miles an hour. So with the Director of Finance and Operations, as well as Tim Person, our Director of Facilities, Vertex, Perkins Eastman, ESBC2, we came to the decision that a 2-4 school was appropriate. We submitted our educational plan to the MSBA. We have used time at nearly every one of these meetings to talk about where the enrollment growth is going. We offered updates on the status of the Elmwood School project. We had visioning group meetings. We've had 6 public forums, and we not only chose our school, but we also moved, as I said earlier, from feasibility to preferred schematic design. Worked with the ESBC2 as well as district leadership in the school committee to ensure public information and dialogue regarding that project. It keeps going out and keeps going out. And we have met the deadline, I think, of issuing a report to the community with recommendations to address enrollment. And I think that we have started to look at that not just at Elmwood, but I think at all 5 schools. So really, really good work on this by everyone involved, and it's gone fast, and people have worked literally countless hours. All right, and the last one, Goal 5, is to grow the administrative team to improve communication, unity, and care for one another. I meet with each building principal once a week. When we meet, we can do anything from conduct classroom walkthroughs, look at data, talk about climate. I keep a running agenda with them, and Carla is still working on establishing a district climate team. That work is not as far along as we wish it had been. We are always working on transitions from building to building, and I think if you look at the worksheet, you're going to see that this year, I am super proud of that. I think for the last 3 years, our elementary folks were getting really good at what does placement look like, what does this child need when he gets to your building, how have you arranged those classrooms, let's get a visit of the school. But now the work that we're doing from grade 5 to grade 6, literally Beth Callahan and I worked with Christine Brown, one of the counselors for 6th grade, and Mr. LaFave, Pat Nash, and Ben Bennett, and we have hand-placed in ELA and math almost all of the kids in that grade. So that feels really good. I mean, we're hoping that whether you are a student with incredible needs or behavioral needs or you're a high flyer with different academic needs, whatever your needs are, we're hoping that this placement does something more. And for the last 3 years, we've been asking, going from grade 8 to grade 9, our high school SMLs to meet with the 8th grade teachers and special educators. And this year we really streamlined that process so that we had some spreadsheets, and then we were able to put people in a room to talk about the kids who are in those spreadsheets. And I think it went a lot smoother. And the efficacy of having that spreadsheet is really nice because you have a takeaway. So all of that is there. I know that I have all of those indicators and elements from the rubric. You can see those in the other document that I shared with you. I don't need that I need to run through them because that's a lot too, and you've seen a lot of that already. So that's it. Okay. And if you have any questions between now and next Thursday, please don't hesitate to reach out.
We'll be hanging out a lot next week.
Yes, we will. I know. That's right. We got at least 3 days.
Yeah. Can I ask those questions? Yeah.
Hopefully not 4.
I won't take that personally.
I will, but it depends on how many days we have of the annual town meeting, which will be lovely and fun, no doubt. But lovely and fun in 2 days might be better than 3. Okay, any questions on the process? Just kind of to circle back. So for next week, we have Choice Point, and I would love input on what works for people's schedules. We do have an executive session that we need to have. I had envisioned maybe we could do that afterwards and do the meeting itself first. Do you guys want to start the meeting at 7 and then do executive session after, or do you want to start earlier to be done? What works for people? Like, I know sometimes you're running from work to here in a not very tight schedule, so is a 7 start better for you, or?
Yeah. Yeah, and it usually doesn't take us that long to join up everybody's input and get it.
Right, I hate to.
Don't even.
I'm not even guess. I don't want to curse us to like a 10-hour meeting, but you're right. It historically has not taken us a huge amount of time to sync everything up and then go on that. So
Previous years, did we send you our
afterwards. So what we did last year, and I think the year before as well, is we all worked on our individual things and held them, in our own little way, and then we brought them to the public meeting, discussed kind of each point by point, like as we went through the entire thing, and then people sent them to me afterwards. And based on the discussion we had, I put them into one document with the ratings that we agree on for each thing, kind of what we've done typically is sort of average in terms of what everybody's was in the numeric sense. And then at the following meeting, so in 2 weeks, we'll come back with what I tried to put together as a merged document and find where I've done it right or where I haven't done it right and fix it and then vote on it. And nobody's allowed to leave the committee till we vote on it. So.
There won't be anything to fix. That's true.
It'll be perfect.
In the discussion, I find that sometimes, we do our pre-work, but then in the discussion, someone will raise something that like I hadn't thought of, or so
Yes.
it also helps inform the individual. Sometimes the individual rating, so it's nice to give them after because sometimes,
Yes.
you go in with your own
Yeah.
things that you looked at, but maybe you missed a piece of evidence, or maybe
Right.
So
Right.
the discussion is really helpful.
I agree, and I have definitely rethought things that I looked at in one way.
Yeah.
So. Okay, then if people are ready to move on, I would like to invite our CPAC representatives to come up so that we can have a conversation on policy BDFB, which is a new policy. We had a first reading only on it at our last meeting. This is the second reading on it. And then to kind of be able to workshop together and see where we are with it. So we have had no conversation about this. I know you guys did send us some feedback, but beyond that, we have not had, obviously, any conversation.
Did anyone get a chance to look at I made copies.
No, thank you.
Yes. So, and just for people at home, because I feel like I know you guys sometimes forget to introduce Jen Halliday is our chair of CPAC, and Jamie Ronca, who is our vice chair. So thank you guys so much for coming. It's nice to have two opportunities in one day to see you both.
What a treat. And these chairs are no more comfortable than they are in the audience.
Let's slide down.
One cushy one. Who gets the
You
cushy
can
one?
fight over the good one.
Totally.
Have to win an election to get on that.
Not true.
Okay, so Dr. Kavanaugh, do you want to say anything to kind of introduce the process for?
Sure, that's fine. So this is a new policy. We have not had a policy BDFB in the past. There are some districts who do. So when the policy working group, which is comprised of Mrs. Devlin, Mrs. Fraggiano, and I, meet, what we, especially if you're taking a look at a brand new policy, we look to see what other districts have. We look to see what the MASC has on their policy list, and then we also kind of, if it's pertinent, we take a look at Mass General Law. And so what you see, I think, in this policy is kind of the three of us taking a look at other people's policies and then also what exists in the law.
The only other point I think I'd make is that this is a combination policy procedure. So these are two different things. So policy tends to be broad. It shouldn't be something that we change a lot. This should really, often it reflects the law, and it tends to be pretty high level. May embody the values of the district, but it's not something that changes a lot. The procedure, and that's something that we vote, and that's, our charter. The procedure, we have lots of procedures that hang under lots of policies, so things like the bus transportation, I think we have a lot of procedures under that, or the bullying policy has a lot of procedures. Similarly, there's a procedure that we went ahead and talked about a procedure because it seemed appropriate to get to a more operational level based on the conversation that we all had together. So in our meeting as a subgroup, we went ahead and started to pull together the procedure part, which can change a bit. That's not quite as sort of quote unquote permanent as the policy. Right.
And that's not voted on, right?
It doesn't require.
It's not
a vote.
voted on, exactly.
Yeah.
And often with our policies, the procedure is owned primarily by the district. It really is. It tends to be operational, so we see it, but we don't really get involved in the procedure. This is a little bit different because this one is talking about how school committee might act. So this is a little bit different. We kind of own this procedure somewhat, collectively, because we're all operationalizing this, which is why we included it. Just want to give you the background.
Yeah, no, that was good.
That's helpful. In terms of discussion, do you guys want to, I guess collectively, maybe start with the first part that is the policy itself, and then go down and we can talk about the procedure and kind of your conversations that you guys, I know, met as a board, correct? Like your CPAC board. Do you want to?
On a Zoom call, we met and went over what you guys had sent from the working group and went over line by line and just suggested different changes that we should make and to bring back to you. And this is what we came up with as far as what everyone on the board was comfortable with coming back for a second read.
Okay. That's okay. Much appreciated. I know that sometimes going line by line is probably, when you look at it, it maybe doesn't even capture how much work you guys put into it, I'm sure.
But we looked at other policies from I know you guys did as well, so nothing really jumped out as being like oh, we've seen it before, so it wasn't, we had already read a bunch of policies, so it wasn't that hard to go through it.
That's good.
Great.
Did you have any suggestions on the policy part? It looked, I didn't see any markup. Yeah.
No, the third paragraph was something that we were wondering, does it even need to be in there? But it's in other policies, so it's, that was all we were talking about with that one, right? Just a few people have brought it up, that doesn't need to be in there, but.
Yeah, we've had that issue a lot with policies that have like legal language in them. It's like, it's already in the laws.
Yeah.
But just to make it clear
Almost
for people
redundant,
who are
but-
looking it up, so they don't have to go through all the mass general laws to find
Yeah.
it.
We have our own hard copy that we thumb through for bedtime reading, but yes, most people
You
know.
do too?
Yeah.
They give you one as soon as you sign your name on that.
Did we get any comments on the policy yet?
No, only Jen's email.
But no public?
Has it gone out to the public yet?
Yes, I believe in today's email that went
Okay.
out to the community as
Okay.
well. I think
Yeah.
last time it was in an email.
Yeah, it was in the packet, yeah.
That's right, it was in the packet as well last time. So
We weren't sure if we were allowed to share that yet, so we can share it with the
that would be great.
greater membership?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think also sometimes an email that comes from, when there are a lot of emails coming from the district, having it come from you guys as well is a good way to make sure that people are clicking and opening and reading and able to provide the feedback. I don't personally have, in terms of just the top policy piece, I don't have any suggested changes on it. I know, other than what everyone kind of has said, that the MGL references sometimes are good to have in there, even though they are a little bit redundant, but so people don't have to look.
It's not the law, right?
It's the law, and the law is important to.
It's really
to
fun,
highlight.
super fun.
And we're not voting anything tonight anyway, because this is a new policy. It's only the
Right.
second reading, so I mean,
Right.
we need the public to think about this.
Yes, and so that people can, CPAC and also other groups of parents who are interested can, and faculty as well, staff that have
We were
feedback
talking
on
this
that.
morning that we've had policies that we read 7 times.
Yes, that is accurate. So that piece, I'm comfortable, go ahead.
So the vote is on the policy. So how does the procedure get decided on, since we're somehow in the middle of procedure as well?
I feel like this is like the workshop piece of like discussing the procedure, even though, and I would imagine on when it appears on the website, the policy will appear with a click to the procedure, or they will be separated out and not shown together like that,
Okay,
is the way they're typically done.
okay, thank you.
Right, because the subcommittee can't decide a procedure without the committee, so we have to workshop it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, the vote is on the policy. There's no vote on the procedure, even if we workshop it.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
all I was trying to wrap my head
So how
around.
do we get a final, like, if we don't vote for it, we're just all like, that looks good.
Yeah,
Like, so-
pretty much.
I guess I envision when, as a group here, we feel like we've hit it in the way that feels good, and we've brought it back and forth a couple
Sure.
times, and we no longer have anything to add and
Yeah.
comment on it. At that point, we can say, okay, we're ready to move on from that for now, with the understanding that procedures get visited more frequently than policies, so that if there's a piece of what we're doing procedurally that either, CPAC wants to revisit, or we want to revisit in some way, or, the administration or anybody feels like that's something that isn't working within the procedure.
Okay. Do we share accountability for procedures, or is that mostly owned by administration? Because I wanted to, like, if somebody from CPAC says, like, well, we're not really following this procedure part of the policy, like, who owns it?
So I feel like, and I think back to what Amanda said, is with many procedures, they are owned by,
Right.
transportation is you want to do a different form or whatever, you just do a different form. I feel like with this one, it's different because
Yeah,
it's,
that's kind of
it's,
what I was wondering.
I feel like this is something where I would hope if there's something we're not doing procedurally,
Yeah.
I would hope that CPAC says, hey,
What
this
the
is,
heck? Yeah.
what's up with this? And then we bring it back and we say, okay, is the reason we're not doing it because there's something about it
Yeah.
that isn't working?
It's not feasible, or-
Did somehow it get dropped in, we're a couple iterations down of either the CPAC or the school committee or both? It's important to kind of come back and have reminders and say, okay, you're not doing number 1 or number 3 or
Yeah. So everybody owns it.
everybody.
Okay.
I would say, and everybody has that shared, I think, interest
Yeah. Thank
in
you.
making, I think the procedure piece is a big piece of how we can kind of help our work going forward. And that's why, I think it's important to have this workshop piece. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we typically don't have to have a procedure, but at our joint meeting, a lot of things we wanted to, our intention jointly was to do several of these things. So writing them down kind of, is that handshake that says, okay, we all heard the same thing, and these are the things that we're trying to do. So it made sense.
Right.
But if for some reason people don't want to write down the procedure, that is an option. We don't, many of our policies don't have procedure. To us, it seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's like good.
We're just,
Yeah.
I think it's just questions to
Yeah.
understand the scope of everything.
Yeah,
since
no.
it's unusual.
And
It is.
I do want to go piece by piece on the paragraphs that we have here, but is there anything that you guys want to add in terms of just the overarching, how we have a procedure and kind of how we own it and move on with it?
I'm fine with that, we all are accountable. Yeah, I just like the idea of having it, it's more like, well, this is how we've all decided we're going to go forward and it would live beyond, my time on CPAC and your time on school committee and that sort of thing, so.
Okay. All right. So let's start then with number 1. I guess I could read it for folks at home. In accordance with school committee policy file BDFB, the school committee may each year, subject to availability of member resources, appoint 1 or more of its members as the liaison or liaisons to the Special Education Parent Advisory Council for the term of 1 school year. The liaison will be responsible for attending Special Education Parent Advisory Council meetings periodically and reporting back to the school committee on the results of these meetings. That I don't see anything in terms of what you guys had any comment on. I think that is,
And this is traditionally how we work. We always have a liaison with CPAC. This past year has been an anomaly.
no, I'm the liaison.
Oh, you're
I don't think it's been an anomaly.
So, I go by the liaison reports, and I haven't. So, okay, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, the next one is something that came out of yours. Do you want to?
Yeah, we wanted to add a number 2, that together the Special Education Parent Advisory Council and the school committee will establish a meeting calendar at the start of each academic year, just so that we know where we're at and we don't get too extended and then we find we're in June and we haven't done anything. So.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I also feel like it kind of flows out of the spirit of the conversation we had when we all met back in early March, right?
I thought it was February.
Or was it? Okay.
It's been March.
I like the idea too because in July/August we sit down and we think about the school committee calendar anyways. So knowing what, November is going to be 3 meetings will help us decide when it's best to meet with CPAC. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, so in number 3, that's the piece that had been in the procedure was in accordance with the meeting calendar established in a partnership between the school committee and CPAC. The Special Education Parent Advisory Council will be invited to present to the school committee 2 times a year. And you guys have added some specificity to that. Do you want to
Yes.
speak to that?
We said in the fall and the spring, and topics to include the organization's annual goals, feedback from the special education community related to special education program successes, opportunities and challenges, or other topics related to special education in Hopkinton. And did we want to leave that, the education and safety of students with special needs, or was that up top?
I think that was the end of their.
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure if it was repeated. Yeah, that would be fine to leave.
Integrated grammatically, of course.
So one of the things we talked about in our working group was specifying the time of year, which is fine. I have no problem if you want to put in fall and spring there. But we also didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into those. But, you know, if it's in the procedures and we don't meet until December, or we, you know what I mean, like those kinds of things. So we talked about, like, do we want to put specific time frames into the procedure, or do we want to just make sure that it happens twice a year, and then at the beginning of the year when we do meet and sit down. Exactly. So
anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was, we did talk about that and had it in there. I think we even had months in there at first, and then we were like, maybe let's just leave it open,
Right.
so that each year, whatever iteration, like you were saying.
It's not fall, it's winter.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Whenever it falls, as long as it meets those sort of 2 times a year when it's
Okay.
supposed to be.
So
Yeah.
take out the fall and the spring, but leave in the topics.
If you're okay with that, that was our thinking in the working group anyway.
Any thoughts? I feel like I have my back to you, and I'm not intentionally doing so. I didn't know if you wanted to add any.
Yeah, the topics are okay with me. I mean, you know, sort of along the lines of the spring and fall, I think it's our first year, so we wanted to make sure we, you know, do something achievable and, you know, not overly prescriptive, but I'm personally fine with the topics. I mean,
And if the procedures are kind of looked at on a year-by-year basis, if it's not working, then we
we could change it.
change it a little bit for next time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We've got to feel it out.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then number 4, in accordance with the school committee's policy file BDFB, and then you've inserted different language. Do you want to talk about?
Sure, yeah. So just because we thought we should be specific to the titles that we have. So that's why we added in, like, so we have the school committee liaison, the director of special ed and/or director of student services, and the CPAC chairpersons will meet monthly to address programmatic concerns. And that was from the meeting that we had on March 8th.
Oh, you've got the actual date pulled up there.
I just pulled up my notes.
Yeah.
Meeting has been proven beneficial to support parent-school collaboration and communication. Other district staff and special education parent advisory council board members may also be included in these meetings. So we just rearranged where the school committee liaison was.
And I think our thoughts on the, like, at least quarterly, like, I know we're like in practice doing monthly, but at the meeting that we all had together, we're like, well, there's a lot of meetings, and well, you know, but let's do monthly now because, you know, we're trying to get a rhythm and a, you know, relationship. But and when we wrote it down, we said, well, at least quarterly. So I'm personally comfortable with either one, if you, because you guys have been meeting monthly, so if monthly feels okay. But I think that our thought again was, it can't be no less frequent than quarterly. That would be detrimental to the process, you know, so at least quarterly. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Or you as the liaison.
So I would say, and I'm open to what makes sense to you guys, but I think the monthly, at least for now, would be my recommendation, that we stick with whether we say I'm okay with leaving it as monthly, or if you guys want to move it to something that allows for the transition to like every other month, or at least to say at least monthly or at least quarterly, like that, in a way that provides the option, or leave it as monthly. We also could leave it as monthly and come back to it in a year, would be the other option.
I would hope that in a year's time we could be even bi-monthly,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the thought, like not knowing where we're gonna land.
Okay.
My thoughts are we are liaisons to a lot of places that meet monthly or meet bi-weekly, so this is not unusual. My only question is, usually it's not like the director of special education, student services, and all of that are meeting monthly. So how does that feel in terms of your staff and their commitments. Is that a comfortable place to be?
So,
Dr. Zaleski, comments?
yeah, I was going to say, given that we're talking about number 4, and we're looking at, Dr. Zaleski, we might be looking at some of the new directors, possibly me. I think once a month could be fine, and I like what you're saying, Jen, that it's once a month now, but maybe next year it could be bi-monthly.
And I mean, there's historical precedent to monthly meetings, right?
It was
Before my
monthly
time.
prior to the pandemic.
Okay.
Way before my time.
Well, prior to the pandemic feels like, a decade ago, but I
And
think I've
bi-monthly
aged.
meeting every other month, because I know sometimes like twice a month, we don't need ramping up, we need ramping down.
I appreciate that you said that, because in my head I was thinking it, but I was assuming exactly what you're saying, yeah. Okay, so do you want to move on to number, and also we are coming back to these again, that this is not like, we're not looking to move off of this, but just for tonight's discussion, if you guys want to move on to number 5.
So number 5, in accordance with a meeting calendar established in partnership between the school committee and CPAC, CPAC will host a family and caregiver open forum with the director of special education and/or the director of student services, team lead chairs, building principals annually in October, with the intent to create open dialogue between families in the district. That was the open forum that we had discussed with Amy and Rebecca.
Yes, I do. I remember that. The only question I have on that is, just for clarity, when we talk about the 2 times a year in number 3, this number 5 is one of those 2. Is that accurate, or was this in addition to the 2?
That sounds
In terms of-
That was different.
Like, so the 2 are for us, sort of like
Right,
a
you're
big
right. Yep.
presentation. This is for
This
the
is for family,
parents,
yeah.
to create visibility to the people who are in charge of their children's,
Yep.
special education. I think it's a great idea. My only question is, like we've said before, should we have October as the date? Like, can it happen before the beginning of the school year? Can it happen?
Oh, I'm sure it could. I think October was what Dr. Zaleski had suggested.
Okay.
But
Oh, right.
Dr. Zaleski
I wasn't there,
She's not going to be there in October.
Okay.
I would say, I feel like the reason it was October was because of like open, back to school nights, open house type things that happen in
And it
September.
was before budget season.
Before budget season,
But
and
not right at the beginning of the year when it's crazy.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
so I mean, again, I also would be comfortable if we say in the fall, so that if it ends up being set at the calendar of like the end of September or like somewhere else.
Yeah,
I hate to shoot for October, but
I think that meeting was right around the beginning of my vertigo, so I think I wasn't able to go. So that's why I'm asking all these questions.
Yeah, you weren't here. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I had just started the vertigo thing. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
In number 5, can I just suggest that we invite the building principals, as opposed to, here it sounds like it's a mandate that they need to attend. And, if I am Mr. LaFave, for example, I would have been to a 6th grade parent night, a 7th grade parent night, an 8th grade parent night in the month of September. So I just think it would be nice to invite them.
Yeah, are they in there?
They are.
No, but, yeah.
She
But
said
instead of
that-
require them to
Oh,
do that.
Yeah, I just think that a procedure
Right.
can sort of dictate.
Like, they'd probably come if you invited them, but don't make them feel like they're required to have
I
one.
think
Yeah.
that was like, I think Dr. Zaleski had said, like, this was something that she was going to make sure all of those people were in place. So I think that's why we worded it that way. But yes, certainly invite
Sure.
the
The team chairs get a stipend for their work, so certainly that means that they have work beyond the regular school day. But I feel like, given the role of the building principal and all of their outside of school obligations, I feel like inviting them would feel a little bit better to me.
Okay.
other thoughts on number 5 before we?
I wasn't there, but I
I
love
thi-
this.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
this idea. I love visibility. I always love the idea of parents knowing the faces and establishing relationships with the administration. That's
Because sometimes you don't know a face. You
Right,
only know
right.
the name because you've corresponded over email. You actually have never shared space with somebody who has such a big role in your child's education, so.
And as we all know, over email, it's really easy to misinterpret things. So connecting personally is a great idea.
I do feel like our conversation, there's nothing about what the content of this meeting would be. And I do feel like the conversation that we had as a group raised the concern about individual student issues. So as long as parents...
You have to make that clear at
Yeah.
the beginning and even when we advertise the event, but it's not, you wouldn't bring up an individual issue. It's more to ask questions.
Right, but like we identified all these topics for the other meeting. I just wouldn't want any parent, especially new to special education or the beginning of a school year, to think, oh, this is when I can finally talk to the principal. Or it's always very tempting when you have an opportunity to speak to somebody to bring your personal case. So I just wonder if we should have, and we can wordsmith it later, but just putting a thought out there to think about, should we characterize the content of the meeting at all so that it's clear what the intent is. I know you'll make it clear in the publications, but where we detailed the topics for the other one, I just want to be clear that we're at the right level for this kind of meeting.
Yeah,
Even
sure.
we know as school committee, we get a lot of questions about very specific, my child had this issue, and that's not what we can do. So it's hard for people to understand where the boundaries are and what the appropriate forum is.
And I would echo, when we have back to school night, it's like fair game for a parent to come up and talk to a teacher about their child's IEP. And you have to sort of say, this is a night to give exactly, and it's a hard thing. You want to talk to, but it's like you have 40 parents standing in front of you. So just being, like she said, just being clear. Like here's what tonight is for, and here's how you have that one-on-one if you want that one-on-one. Yeah.
And if we have a process ahead of time, because of course we can't control what anyone says.
Right now.
Yeah.
If someone were to come up and ask a really individual question, if we already have a process in mind of, oh, Ms. Jones, it sounds like you want to speak to this person, here's their card.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, so that we have some things that we're validating, you have a real concern and question, and this is who you speak to.
Right.
Not here.
Right.
Which of course would never be the intention, but English is imprecise, people get stressed.
Right.
And so we want to make sure we minimize those miscommunications.
Right. Make the connections to allow people to be able to have the conversations they need and encourage that.
And then they know who they are, and like, oh, okay, this is it's you, okay. And then when they reach out to that person is already aware. This parent is going to call me or email me.
The more administrators you have in the room, the more people who can answer the questions, right? They would know, okay, here's who you need to talk to.
Right.
Quickly solve the issue. Well, not solve it, but get in the time.
Get it rolling.
Put the ball in queue.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And make sure that people feel that they have avenues for their individual concerns that they might not otherwise know they have.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm gonna keep thinking about 5 because I want to just chew on this a little bit. I like the idea. I just want to make sure we set everybody up for success. So, just saying, I know we're not voting anything. It's a workshop, but I want to think about it a little bit.
The other thing is like the in accordance with school committee policy, BDFB. I don't actually think that's in the policy,
Okay.
No, it's
That
not.
was from-
just in terms of wording.
Which one? 5?
Number 6.
Oh, you're going 6. Okay, we've moved to 6.
Sorry. I wasn't there either.
Oh, yeah, it's not, because we pulled that from the Sudbury policy.
So I have a question about how do you envision it being, like, this description different from a liaison from CPAC to the school committee?
So I don't know, because I don't know how it looks. But when we talked about it, and the rest of the CPAC board was so pleased that I rewatched the entire meeting and took notes and made time marks for where I thought important parts were.
You are so organized.
Her free time. I was on an airplane, so I had some time. It had sounded like, I think that when we were looking back at the meeting and liaison was discussed, it was a little bit unclear like what that means exactly. And then in chatting with friends who are on other town boards, it isn't very clear. I couldn't find this is how it always works. And then the Sudbury policy had this. We're like, oh, well, that makes sense. And it lays it out pretty clearly. And so that was where that came from.
I saw this. We didn't
we
talk-
read it,
oh,
yeah.
I think we did. So, because I know that I think Sudbury
It's one of the
theirs
first
on
ones
Acton
when you do a Google
Boxborough,
search.
right?
Yeah.
And so Acton Boxborough came first, and then Sudbury is working on theirs. And to me, the ex officio member, I don't know what this is exactly either, but I feel like that's somebody who comes and sits at every for the meeting. Like, you're here for the meeting, you don't vote, but you're
Like
here.
what Robert does.
Kind of like Robert, exactly. Which to me doesn't, like, I think our goal is to create the opportunities for collaboration on the topics that pertain to to CVAC. So I think the liaison for me works. But all the other stuff we talk about, like,
Right, and that's two different things, because when during the meeting, we talked about, should there be a CPAC liaison to a school committee? I think you actually said that. Right. I give you the timestamp if you want. And that's different than a school committee liaison to CPAC.
Right. Yes.
Right, because it
Yeah,
comes
for
from
the
your board.
information to flow both ways.
right, it's your member who comes to our
comes
meetings
here.
or watches them or does whatever.
Right, and
yeah.
so, does this actually, did I somehow miss that?
So I think the difference between what I'm reading here and a liaison to the school committee would be like, when we're liaisons, let's say to a board, you might look through the agenda for the day and then go, okay, today they're not really discussing anything on that I can bring back to my group, so I may not need to show up that day. Whereas an ex officio member is going to be here every night, and they're going to be here the entire meeting, and they're going to be talking about all the topics.
Right, like
So
you'll
I
hear
think
school
that's the
choice, you'll hear every policy, you'll hear, like Robert has, sits there and after he's done with his student council report, he sits and listens to yeah, so that's the difference. I
That's
feel
the
like it would be
difference.
like someone from your board who's willing to review our agenda each meeting and say they're talking about something that has to do with or will affect CPAC members in some way, shape, or form, so I should show up. And then, like, appropriation shows
That
up
would be a
when we talk
liaison,
budget.
is what you're
Correct,
highlighting.
yes. And so that's kind of why I asked that question, because I feel like it almost would be worse for someone, I feel like, as a member of CPAC, to come as an ex officio member, as opposed to someone who's liaison who comes for the stuff that is meaningful.
Did I miss do we just not have one that says that there's a CPAC liaison to a school committee?
We didn't
There isn't yet.
You don't have one. Yeah, you don't have one.
Yeah, we're not arguing with that possibility. We were just arguing with the not
what
even
you wanna
arguing, describing the
Do you
difference
really
in
want to
terminology.
do this?
Right.
That's what I was trying to understand. I was like, are we editing it back to something that we got? No, we're talking about something different.
And
Okay.
if you're an official liaison, then you would sit with us when you came
Well,
in.
so that's, but I think
not
we have to
necessarily.
define that because, like, for
Okay.
example, the select board liaison to the school committee does not come and sit at the table. So if we want to have them sit at the table, I think we want to specify that. I think just saying it's a liaison does not.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or so, for example, during budget season, the appropriations liaison, Jean Birchman, comes and she sits in the audience. I do always ask her if she has anything
Right.
to
Right.
add.
Right.
But if we're talking about having somebody sit at the table, it doesn't mean they have to be called something other than a liaison and be
We just have
compelled to
to
be every single
specify
meeting.
that when they're here.
We want to, right.
And they're
Okay.
frequently invite, like what you just said, once we get to the topic that's relevant to whatever
Right.
board they're representing, we frequently invite them up and say, if you have anything to say, this is your chance. Whether it's Mike or Jean or whoever, they come up.
Right.
But then once that topic's over, they're out of here. So,
I'm going to make a suggestion because you might want to discuss this
Yeah.
with your entire board, kind of in terms of, are you looking truly for an ex officio person who's going to be here for every other week for the 3 hours or whatever we do? Or are you looking for somebody who's going to be here when we're discussing CPAC related things?
Basically, how I envision it is that the person would be invited to the table
Yeah.
anytime special education is discussed in this form. right? But that also includes having the access to the information ahead of time so that we can share it to the membership, get feedback, compile that feedback, and actually have something that we can contribute to you guys so you can make the informed decisions.
So when we get the initial agenda, they should get the initial
I
agenda.
would think before it's out, like, you know it's coming before it makes it to the agenda. So I feel like if CPAC could at least.
We don't actually always.
Sometimes yes and sometimes no.
I mean, we plan the agenda, we are on agenda planning. So the two of us tend to know what the agenda topics are because we do agenda planning. But when I wasn't in this vice chair, you'd get the agenda and be like, oh, that's on the agenda. Right.
Well,
Okay.
and that can,
You don't know, because we don't
get it the
talk.
Friday before the rest of us.
Oh, I thought you got it on Tuesday.
so sometimes, sorry, sometimes we do get it later because if you look back to when we were in the middle, we were meeting every single week and there were twice a week in a few particular weeks. The agenda was sometimes planned on a Friday before a Thursday meeting, and then it takes time for Georgette to pull everything together. And so we weren't always getting it before the weekend. It's so, I understand what you're saying, I think, is that as soon as we know, kind of saying, hey, Jen, assuming, or whoever the person is, I know that we're going to be discussing a unified PE or unified recess or something that would be specific. It's going to be on this date. Does that, kind of that heads up? And as soon as there's more specific information on it, getting it to you guys in the timely a manner as we're able to.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys care about being called, in terms of being called a liaison.
No, that's
okay.
more of it, a lot of that wording came from Sudbury's policy.
Okay.
So,
And now you're feeling bad for Sudbury CPAC activities.
An ex officio, that would be a different
I
construct.
wasn't planning on that.
right. That's what I figured, but I just want to make sure.
I thought we were getting close and you wanted a little more time.
I mean, Robert is pretty much an ex officio.
Right.
He
But
is.
aside
He's not-
from that, we don't have any ex officio member. It would be a very different construct for us to shift to that mode. And we don't serve in that capacity on any other board either. Nor do we, I mean, frankly, in most cases, I think for the boards that we're liaisons to, we don't get any notification. You
follow the agenda.
You follow the agenda and you figure it out, and then you show up, and then if something is relevant, you chime in. I mean, you do your best, but all the boards are doing their best. So I think we all operate
Right.
we're all trying to do the same thing. You sit there, you bring your best intelligence of the day, which often isn't the best, but you do your best work. But I think you don't often get any special insights, and if at the meeting there's more to discuss, maybe things can be postponed for a vote, or maybe they can't. But it's a role that is everybody trying to work together, and it's an official person, so they know who to go to, and you know who to go to, and
So I would actually mildly disagree. So yes, that is how most liaisons work.
yeah.
But the fact that the school committee establishes a parent advisory council says we're much more closely tied than to any of those other boards. And so I don't think there should be an issue with giving them a heads up when they're gonna.
No, but I don't know that we tend to have, there may be a misunderstanding that we have a lot more visibility to things in advance. And I wouldn't want there to be frustration when you're like, oh, it's Tuesday, we're just getting the final packet, or that may be what we're doing too.
Okay, understood, yes.
Well, maybe just be on the same email.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Attack us on the end when you're sending out the packet to everyone
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
As much time as possible to
Yep,
we can provide you more input the more time we have.
yeah, that makes total sense.
One thing that pops into my head is I don't know if it might be helpful to have kind of a back and flow and have the liaison to your board meetings as well in some capacity to be able to have that conversation in real time to say, it kind of flags up, hey, you guys might bring a concern and we might go talk about how that would become an agenda item, or vice versa. The liaison might have some insight that this is coming up, that, for example, I know the bullying report's going to be in X number of weeks kind of.
I think it actually is a kind of cool opportunity because, we have a liaison to the select board and the select board has a liaison to us.
Right.
But it's set up so differently. But I think for CPAC and the school committee, if CPAC had a point person who was responsible for like taking a peek at the agenda and seeing if there was anything relevant to CPAC on the agenda each time it's posted, then showing up if they felt, or sending someone else in their stead if they felt like it was important to be there. And we have a liaison here to CPAC who kind of has the same job, although he probably goes to every meeting because it's always relevant to us, right? But at least then there's two people who are constantly bringing info back and forth between the two boards all the time. I don't know that happens. I would say it doesn't happen in most other boards, planning,
Right,
and
exactly.
I think it's a chance to kind of have point people on both. So if someone misses a meeting for whatever reason, then you still have that other person who's coming in to report back, and it's kind of a cool.
I also really
potential.
like Nancy's point, right? Like, as a school committee, it's very hard to deal with like one parent's problem, right? But if CPAC have been hearing trends or concerns that are kind of broader and we're not aware of them, knowing from you what's happening and then being able to put it into our agenda as a question for Dr. Kavanaugh or whoever about what's happening in the school district and what is the state of this matter type of thing would be really beneficial for us. So I really like that.
And you guys are also, I point you're still on liaison, so you guys are also meeting monthly. So you have that regular cadence with Dr. Zaleski. There are lots of points of connection, and I would say anybody can request an agenda item. Like even if it, if it comes up, you can always send an email to get in the agenda too. So more connection is probably better than less at this point. So I like it. I think, I think part of, I'm trying to remember our conversation, I feel like we didn't want to tell you have to assign a liaison.
Right.
I think what you see written here is what we felt. If we could control, we can say that we're going to have a liaison, but we're not going to tell you have to have one, but I think it would be good.
And I think one other thing, we have a lot of special education parents on the board, right? But each of us has a limited experience, right? So, I have a child with autism, I have a child with ADHD, and one of my children has dysgraphia, and so I know those things, right? And so when things come up, I can talk about them, but I don't know a lot of other things. I don't know, dyslexia and all of the different ways that dyslexic children need support. And I think that's the other place where going and hearing from you all, we have a group of parents whose children have these needs, and we're not sure the school district, has talked about this, or maybe we think it's a broader problem that we should be discussing, and none of us may be quite as aware of it as you would be. I think that's something that I would look forward to.
I would love to hear that, population specific information that we don't have access to.
Right. Without Meg, I wouldn't have known about Wilson, right?
Yeah.
I would not have known anything about that because my children did not experience that. Right? So
I get a lot of feedback from the community from specific populations, but it's also filtered through me, who is one person, and I would love to have those folks or whoever their spokesperson was on your board speak on their behalf so that they're always heard and they know they'll be heard every time it's relevant, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is awesome. I guess I'm talking more because I wasn't there.
So we're on the right track.
I like the fanciness of the ex officio. That sounds extra. I don't know. It sounds cool. I was like, I
Ex
don't know.
officio sounds awesome.
It's a really cool, but it's less cool in practice. Mm-hmm. Although I will say that Robert does play chess a lot. He probably doesn't want me to go open spot.
He was so polite. He's thank you. I learned so much. And he's you're so polite.
Yeah.
So are there Anything we want to add before we kind of marinate with this and think about it and bring it back from, marinate maybe isn't the right word, but it is almost mine, so.
Let it rattle around in your noggin.
I like that. I like that. I don't know if there are thoughts that any of you guys have that you want to add to what we're thinking of, kind of rattling around in our brains over the next couple of weeks till we bring it
No, I
back.
think the policy working group should just get together and, see what we have.
Do a revision. Yep, take those.
So now, as far as sharing this with the community, what stage should I be sharing this red line document? Should we wait until the policy review committee meets? Is there a way that CPAC could sit with the policy review committee and collaborate, like?
So we don't even allow these board members to do that. So that doesn't seem prudent to me. I feel like what happens is we usually take feedback from, sometimes it's the community, sometimes it's folks on the board, but we kind of go back and work on this. I would prefer that this is, your red line version is not shared, because my only worry is that when people see things in print, they begin to think that it's already been codified. And it hasn't. So that's just my feeling.
Typically what happens with any policy is that, as Dr. Kavanaugh said, like, we will take all this feedback plus whatever emails we got, which we didn't get any this time, but we'll then go make a revision, and then we bring it back, and then that collaboration happens here. So this is where the work happens with the school committee members. They look at, whatever, we've heard all the feedback, we have the red line version. So the revised, the next edit will go out with the packet and go out to the community, and we just keep going, like
And
5,
once
6,
again,
7, 8,
And
9
the next
times.
edit that comes out, that's when I should
Come back.
share it with others.
Yes.
Yes.
Because right now it's only been shared with the board, because I didn't know what iteration we actually release it.
So I have a question about that might hopefully doesn't throw a wrench in the works. We just reviewed it in public meeting. So
it is public.
I feel like it is. That's the problem.
It is, but the administrative piece of what you guys do, of taking, I think it's hard to capture the,
Right.
footnotes.
Sure.
You could send it out to anybody who has the notes on the side, or you guys could just clean up what we've discussed here
And then send it out
put
as
it
a
in
draft.
as a draft.
And that's the other thing,
They all
is it
come
doesn't
back.
say draft. Like, I would put a big draft
Yeah.
or something on there so folks know. But Jamie, you could just bookmark it you could say, here's where it starts, and then you can watch it. But I think, that's the other thing. We did just talk about it publicly, so it's out there. But
Not a
it's,
secret, but
exactly, it's not top secret. But I think to Dr. Kavanaugh's point, if we send it out to the public, people are going to read it and think it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we had lots of draft and it's that kind of stuff on there, I would feel better about it. But it
is a
It's a
school committee
con-
policy.
Right.
So it's your policy. So
Right.
if someone else disseminates it revised in a way that they hope it would exist,
Right. It's still, exactly.
that's where there's confusion.
So
It doesn't
this-
feel quite right.
This
Right.
is weird because nobody's arguing with the policy.
Right.
The
It's
The
policy
policy itself
is fine.
yes.
Everyone has
Right.
checkmarked the policy. It's the
We're
procedure
feeling good about the policy.
we're having a discussion about, which is
True.
once again a very unusual situation for us.
Right.
But I think, to your point, Jen, this is public. I wouldn't share this document, but sharing the discussion, because I think it's the context that matters, right?
Yeah.
So sharing the discussion that we had over the document.
And certainly
May-
discussing it.
that-
Discussing it on your board, I feel
That
like
is
not
perfectly
Yeah.
informative, I think.
Yeah, I just would want feedback from the community at some point in the
Yeah.
process.
I was just going to say that the feedback then, when what we've discussed here gets put into the next iteration that kind of goes out, would go kind of back to you guys and then out to the public, and you guys can send to your group as well. And then we come back and we say, okay, did the policy working group capture what we discussed? And what's the next? Is there something more that we didn't think of this time? Is there something that somebody in the community thought of? Is there, I don't know, something that was, brilliant that we somehow missed?
And I think part of, is it being part of the packet is probably the critical piece there that you just said, because then it's posted publicly for everybody to say, all right, here's the latest iteration, as opposed to like handing out, you know, like, because even though we did this just now, someone could be like redline something else and hand it to somebody else, you know what I mean? As opposed to like, it's in the packet, this is the one that's the official, like, check it out. Exactly, exactly.
We were just talking about giving the packet the moment it's available. Would that be okay for this, right? So if we get the packet, let's say on a Friday night, and it has the edits.
So I think that getting that piece out is one thing. What occurs to me in my head as we're talking about the entire packet is the packet that we look at on Friday is not the actual packet.
Right.
It does get.
It changes.
Right. But I'm talking about the policy, if it's, the policy working group's already met,
Yes, I think I'm
so
okay
grabbing the
with
policy from the early packet.
as soon as the policy
As soon
working
as we
group
can
has
meet.
put it together.
don't have anything on
I don't think it has to wait until it's part of the packet.
You two have nothing ever going on. You're always meeting.
And I was just saying, you know, like every other policy, and in some cases, you know, procedure, but like every other policy, I would hope that the community, your CPAC members, as well as anybody in the community, would email us too. Like I would like to, I don't want to take away that direct communication because you're here. Like I think if it's to you, CC us, or, you know, we like to hear directly on policy, and this, like any other policy, this is the policy part is a school committee policy, and we want to hear from people. If they have an issue with this or if they have a concern, I don't want to lose that direct. And if the procedure gives pause to a family member, you know, the procedure is really the handshake of how we're going to work together to implement the policy, and that's really between the people at this table for the most part and the director of student services. But there may be something that a family member doesn't like about what we said we're going to do, and that's fine. But I want to hear that too, and I don't want to lose that. And likewise, if an administrator has a concern, you know, we want to hear from people.
Yeah.
So
So when we send it out, should I say, if you have anything, any feedback, please send it to CPAC and the school committee email?
That would be great.
because we always say that with policy. We always say, please let it, you know, this is just a reading, please give us feedback. And we've had feedback
Right.
on
On
policies.
certain
And,
policies.
Sometimes
And we
it comes
scrapped
to
the
you,
entire
too.
thing.
and we have scrapped the entire thing before too, yeah.
But I don't feel like I feel like we're in a pretty good place in terms of where we're seeing things moving, and I wouldn't foresee it being scrapped. I don't mean to suggest that, but
But I want to hear from people still.
wanna
Like,
hear-
I don't
yes,
want
I
to lose
do.
that, because that
Yeah.
means a lot to us too, to have that feedback.
And it allows us to act on it
Right.
faster. So it's possible that we get a packet on Friday, we get a lot of feedback on the policy, Amanda and
Make a
Jen
quick edit.
decide they have a moment to meet.
Yeah.
And before the Tuesday final release, they can do an edit. Like, that's a possibility too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think my issue is just structurally, right? Because the school committee has 3 jobs. It's budget, it's policy, and it's evaluating and hiring the superintendent.
Yeah.
So realistically, when you write a policy, you disseminate it to the entire community.
Right.
And CPAC can certainly be one board or body or, you know, group of people in that community. But I feel like the dialogue has to exist between the community and the school committee.
Right.
And certainly dialogue can exist between the school committee and CPAC, but I don't think that CPAC has to be the intermediary between the community and school committee. Like, I think that there still has to be that direct communication for you.
That's
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I just feel like if we can take a whole packet of 60 pages, make it down to 2 pages, send it to families, then a parent of a young child
Won't feel
with special
overwhelmed.
needs isn't overwhelmed, and because they're not going to read it. But if we can make it easier and more palatable for people, then we can get more feedback. Really, that's what we're looking to do.
That's great.
I also, you know, that would be something that, you know, I think is great to be able to toss up on social media for people to look at policies as well, and or like the link to it anyway, to be able to say this is being discussed.
Yes, and when we do send our email out on the day, typically it's the day of a school committee meeting, and if there's a policy on that school committee agenda, it always goes out as sort of an individual thing. So
Right.
there'll be a link in there, so you don't have to kind of mine through 60 pages. You'll just be able to.
people might find us a little less intimidating also.
Then an email.
We're elected officials.
I am intimidated.
This is good. I think we made. I mean, considering we just met on March 8th. I mean, this is good. We're in a good place.
We definitely are.
I feel like we're in a good place. I would love feedback from you guys in terms of any of this.
I think we're moving forward. We're doing everything that we had agreed upon, you know, and no, I think we're working towards a better relationship.
I wasn't going quite that broad with it. I agree with you. I feel like this document is in a good place.
Yeah,
But
I mean, thank you for the thoughtful additions.
Thank you for the
There were
time, too.
definitely some really good thoughts in here. Like I said, the October meeting sounds fantastic. So
I think that should be an interview question for your next, your replacement, to make sure that that person is going to follow through. 'Cause I think it could be great, and it could be something every year that families look forward to.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
hanging in through a later
Wait one second, I
sometimes.
want to ask you, I have a future agenda item that I want you to.
Okay.
Actually, right on time.
We are, you know,
They'll let me
if
maybe
we
go
slow
first.
down, we
Maybe
can be
not.
exactly 9. So, thank you, guys.
I asked them to wait 1 second because I have a future agenda item that
Okay.
I want them here for.
Okay, we're not going to deliberate on it though, because it's not on the
It's
agenda.
not going to be deliberated.
I just
It's
wanna make
it's
sure.
a future agenda. Well, it's not really actually because there's no other place, but I am I was appointed to the MASC Special Education Committee. We have a meeting on May 23rd. I want to ask the whole board for any topics they want brought up to email me. So CPAC, the rest of the board, the administrators, everybody, because I get to sit with, the chair of that committee. So that's what I don't know where else to put it. I didn't know else to say it, so I figured here.
All
You
right.
can certainly ask membership.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of questions
Yeah.
out there.
So
that
thank
you
you.
could bring.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So May 23rd, anytime before that. Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
and congratulations.
Oh,
Holly.
thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. We have a couple of outstanding future agenda items.
Yeah.
and-
Might not get to it.
Well, we could try to put that out there for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Which one? I'm
The
sorry.
technology
Yeah.
one.
Oh,
I have.
That'll be tough for the administration.
oh. Got it.
Yeah.
Because that would be Mr. Bishop or Mr. Scott.
We could also invite Leah to come back to our meetings.
We could invite.
She wouldn't mind. I'm gonna say
That sounds true for you too as well then, right?
sure.
You want to hear it? You want to hear all the future agenda items? Yeah.
It's like a cliffhanger
No, I
to
do. I-
bookmark
You
or
can't not
TV.
know.
I watched you got your meetings all through 21, so
Oh boy.
don't worry.
It's like you never see.
I'll be there. You just won't know.
That doesn't sound at all creepy.
Right?
Go sleep, former committee
I
members.
wanted to text you and be like, I'm watching you.
Oh, a lot of people asked if we can talk about ESY, about, lots of questions, lots and lots of questions, and I can send those specific questions to the administration for a future agenda, but it was specifically about like how kiddos qualify, how we design the program, all that kind of stuff. I got a lot of questions, and I was like, I don't know any of the stuff, so I'll ask. Thank you. So that's
Well,
what
it's too bad that maybe the CPEC meeting
I-
of this week wasn't better publicized because that
Well,
was the
I
topic. They did cover ESY this week.
Yeah, so those were kind of post that meeting. I
Oh,
think
I
it
see.
might be parents who have children that maybe did not qualify for ESY or something along those lines, or parents that didn't think that like whatever would work for their kids, or they want to it's a better understanding. So I told them I'd bring it here, and so I'm gonna do it. So that's what it is. So check to me.
I know it's not a future agenda item, but next week, town meeting, we would love to have the school community there to support us.
That's right.
As we work through our articles,
The budget.
the budget, everything we've worked so hard for, and that we have had so much parent participation in. It would be great to just give us your energy once more and show up to vote.
Speaking of which, did we only post for 2 days? Is that optimistic, or do we?
It's not. Georgia has been doing it like as it comes,
Okay.
so that if we go into a third night of town meeting, we should post for that. It doesn't have to be posted till Monday, so we
Monday,
could still
okay.
add that posting.
Where
as well.
are our articles coming? So because it may be that
We'll be
Monday,
done.
Tuesday, we'll be done with our articles, even if town meeting is.
It's our highest article, 39.
38.
38. I was
Okay, pretty high.
That's the one they talked about
Day
tonight,
three.
right now.
No.
You're hoping because you want to have that extra day with us next week because we're fine.
We'll get 4 days together. Wow.
Yeah.
But we would have to know Monday before 2, right?
Yes.
But I think we could still post it. I think 'cause
Isn't there
we
some
can't
kind
wait
of
until town meeting,
emergency?
obviously.
But I was just wondering if we wanted to post
Yes,
proactively,
Yes.
because I only see 2 dates, is all I was saying.
Do we feel like that's a possibility? I feel like my brain just erases the experience, so I don't know how, like, do we think
It
it will
has
get
gone
to
into
38?
3 days frequently, and I think
Pretty much every
we
time.
can cancel a posting,
Yeah.
but we can't add one on Tuesday if it becomes clear that we're going to need more time.
Okay.
The other thing I just wanted to call attention to, just because this is related to the school committee, is that tomorrow night, right, today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, is the contested candidate for this. There are 3 school committee candidates. The debate will be tomorrow night on HCAM, and just want to put a plug in for people.
I think people can submit questions, right?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
why?
that
So the moderators.
the moderators, I believe that there's somebody from HCAM, I think it's probably
A woman.
Tom, and
Oh, yeah.
as well as Peter Thomas from Hop News.
Oh, so no questions. They already have all their questions. I know it's
I
not.
mean, you could certainly reach out to them and make suggestions, but
I have no more suggestions.
they do come up with that on their own. It's different than the Meet the Candidates
Okay,
night
thank you.
for that. Okay,
Which was
the one
Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
piece, because we've gone off script here a little bit, is that, no, that's okay, it's all good discussion, is the items by consensus. I missed that.
Thank you. As superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Leah, is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Jen, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. And they all carry unanimously. Anything else that we want to say regarding our upcoming meetings? We're going to add the posting for Wednesday night, because if we don't, it'll definitely go into a third night. If we do, it might be canceled.
It's like having an umbrella in the rain.
You know, yes, that's exactly it.
right.
I am not superstitious at all. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Motion by Leah, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Jen, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye, and we are adjourned at 9:05. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see people on Monday evening at 7 o'clock for town meeting.
Thank you.